This is everything I'm going to do over the next 8 weeks to drop 6 kilos ahead of summer. I'm just back from a holiday in Spain, and before that I spent 6 weeks losing weight at a slow and steady pace. Over that time I pulled off 5 kilos, and as you'll see in this photo, there's quite a good change in that time. I'm going to be going back out there in about 8 to 9 weeks time, and I want to be in a certain kind of shape the next time I go out. Ideally so I can take my top off and get so sunburnt within the first day, because I am Scottish, as you can probably tell, both my accent and of course my complexion, so I can get so sunburnt that I spend the rest of the holiday inside. I'm half joking. I hope that doesn't happen. There's a high probability it does, unless I bring my SPF 75. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on 3 things to get there. The first one is, and this is the important one, is I'm going to nail my calories down. I'm going to make sure I'm tracking really accurately, and I'm going to put myself in quite an aggressive deficit. When I was in my muscle gain phase previous to this, I was sitting on average about 3,000 to 3,200 calories. Now I'm going to pull those calories right down to 1,800. So that should mean that I'm dropping just about a kilo a week. I'm going to adjust as the weeks go on to see exactly what my rate of progress is, but I know that's a good starting point. I know that that will be pulling off a really good amount of body fat quite quickly, at the kind of speed that I will probably notice a difference every 7 to 10 days, which is going to be important because I'm going to be pushing myself quite hard here. For me, I'm pretty active. I tend to knock out a good amount of steps. I'm going to find that probably pretty hard. That's going to be challenging at points, but the big upside is motivation is going to be sky high because I'm going to be seeing those big visual changes. So that's the first thing that I'm going to focus. The second thing that I'm going to focus on is I'm going to have a step target. So on average, I probably would naturally get about 8 to 9,000 steps. If I'm making a bit of a conscious effort, that probably averages out about 10, 11. Right now I'm aiming for 13,000, which is just at the kind of upper end of doable by the time I fit in training and all the other things I want to do. Then that's going to put me in a good spot so my calorie expenditure is nice and high. And it just means that I don't have to drop my calories any lower, ideally, over the course of this diet. I would rather start nice and active and stay nice and active, because not only does it ensure that I don't have to drop my calories down farther on in the diet, but it also means that progress should be pretty fast out of the gate. And the third thing that I'm going to be focusing on is food volume. So this is kind of the key thing that I did wrong the first time I went into a weight loss phase. And I'll give you an example of this. What I did was I tried to white knuckle my diet. What I mean by that is I had to use tons and tons of willpower. I was always bloody hungry and it was really hard going. And the reason it was so hard going was because my food volume was really low. Now I'll be focusing on getting loads and loads of veggies, lots of fruit, lots of bulky foods into my diet. So doubling up on things like mushrooms, tomatoes, peppers, onions, all these things, making sure my portion sizes at dinners and lunches are really, really big and really filling. And of course, making sure that in between then, when I do have snacks, that I'm snacking on fruit as well, to make sure the overall food volume I'm eating is really, really high. Because yes, protein is important. It absolutely is. And I will still have a protein target too. I will be aiming for double body weight. For me right now, that's going to be about 165 grams. So I'm going to be aiming for that. But a lot of people get caught up in protein and don't pay any attention to food volume and often what comes with food volume, which is fiber intake, right? So by having more fruit and veg, my fiber sits higher. I've got a lot more on my plate at each meal. I've got, even my snacks are going to be a bit bulkier. And what that's going to do is it's going to minimize my hunger, and it's going to make it much easier when I go into this aggressive weight loss phase. So I've made sure to give myself a bit of a window. Yes, I've mapped out for 8 weeks, but I've given myself some buffer within that, because I could maybe aim for 8 kilos, 1 kilo a week. And if I had nothing on the schedule, that might be just about doable, but that really isn't realistic for most people, and it certainly isn't for me. I do have some social plans in the mix. I appreciate that I'm going to have to make some trade-offs there, but at the stag do, that's going to be tricky. So I've given myself that little bit of wiggle room. Now, the other thing that is really, really important about all of this is my expectations. I know that I'm going to be aiming for a kilo a week, which is pretty bloody fast. So I'm expecting at times to experience a good amount of hunger. It's going to be normal for me to probably wake up a little bit hungry, and it might be quite normal for me to go to bed a little bit hungry. And the world's not going to end. I can sit in that hunger. I'm not going to stress about it, because I know I'm going to have 3 good meals that really fill me up. And I'm also probably going to feel a bit hungry before each of those meals. The reason that matters is your goals have to meet your expectations, right? So if I've got this really ambitious goal of seeing a big visual change, because let's be honest, for a 80 kilo guy, you pull 6 kilos off, you feel a hell of a lot better, especially when you're training hard, eating well, makes a big difference, right? And that's a short period of time. So I have to expect that it's going to be hard at points. If I expect it to be easy, then I'm setting myself up to fail. And the first time I get a little bit hungry, I feel really hard done by, or the first time that my mates go for a couple of pints and I decide to have a non-alcoholic beer or a Coke Zero, I'm going to feel really hard done by. But because I know I'm doing the short, sharp effort, I'm not going to be worried about that. And that brings me on to the last thing that I wanted to touch on in this video, and it's this idea that if you are going to go short and sharp, there are some advantages and some disadvantages. The biggest advantage is you can see changes much, much more quickly. And the big advantage on top of that is that you're done much, much more quickly. But you are going to make more trade-offs. It's not going to be the most balanced weight loss phase I've ever done. I've done slow and steady and it worked brilliantly for me. It helped me drop 20 kilos when I first had to lose a big old chunk of weight. I went really steady at it. I was actually sat on 2,300 calories for almost 9 months all the way through, and I made good progress, about half a kilo a week on average. I did brilliantly over that time. But this time round, I don't have anywhere near as much weight to lose, so I would rather get in and get out with this weight loss phase. I'll be doing a weekly video on my progress as each week goes by, what's been challenging and what's gone well. And I'm going to be really, really honest in each of these videos. I don't want it to come across like it's a walk in the park all the time, but I also want you to see that it's also still very doable and you can see big changes in a relatively short time frame if you push yourself. So if you do want to see that, the video for the first week of how I get on is just here for you.